Close your eyes and imagine a world before memory learned how to speak, before names were given to the sky, before footsteps marked the earth, before even fear had found a shape. In that distant past, the planet breathed in a way that would feel unfamiliar to us now. The air was thicker, heavier, and rich with an invisible force that carried both promise and danger. This was a time when oxygen did not simply sustain life, it shaped it. More than 300 million years ago, Earth was wrapped in endless green. Vast swamps stretched beyond the horizon, their waters still and dark, reflecting towering forests of ancient trees. These were not trees as we know them today. They rose straight and tall, their bark damp and fibrous, their leaves spreading wide like open hands reaching for the sky. The ground beneath them was soft and soaked, layered with fallen plants that never fully decayed. Life grew faster than death could follow. The air itself had begun to change. With every generation of plants, more oxygen slipped into the atmosphere, slowly at first, then steadily, the sky filled with a richness unknown to the future. Each breath carried more energy, more life, more possibility. Oxygen climbed beyond what the world had known before, reaching levels so high they would one day feel dangerous to human lungs. But here, in this ancient age, it felt like a gift. Creatures responded without hesitation. Insects, breathing through tiny openings in their bodies, absorbed this abundance directly into their cells. Their bodies grew larger with each passing era, wings stretching wider, shells thickening, movement becoming slow and confident. Dragonflies drifted through the humid air with wings that shimmered like glass, casting shadows across the forest floor. Millipedes slid through the undergrowth, long and armored, untroubled by the weight of their own size. There was no fear in their growth. The world welcomed them, the air carried them. Life expanded as if it had been waiting for this moment. Water pooled between the roots of trees, and early amphibians rested along the edges. Their bodies strengthened by lungs that filled easily. Movement no longer required urgency. Survival felt certain. The planet seemed generous, offering more than life asked for. Growth became natural. Limitation felt unnecessary. Far beyond this ancient world, in a quiet room lit by a single lamp, a man studied the stone memory of that time. Dr. Elias Rowan traced the delicate outline of a fossilized wing with careful fingers. He had spent years listening to the past, not as numbers or charts, but as stories pressed into rock. To him, these remnants were not dead things, they were echoes. This, he murmured, barely louder than a breath, is when everything began to change. He imagined the air of that world filling his lungs, imagined the sensation of strength flowing effortlessly through his body. He wondered how it must have felt to live without restraint, to grow without consequence, and beneath that wonder, he felt a quiet unease. In the Carboniferous world, forests fell but did not disappear. There were no organisms yet capable of breaking down wood completely. Fallen trees piled upon one another, sinking slowly into the wet earth, locking away carbon and leaving oxygen behind. Century after century, the process repeated. The planet exhaled, and the sky thickened. Oxygen rose past 20%, then 30%, until it reached nearly 35%. The air itself became powerful. Fire needed little encouragement. Breath came easily. Life surged forward, unaware that abundance can carry a hidden cost. At night, the forests did not sleep. The air hummed softly, alive with movement. Insects stirred, amphibians shifted, and the heavy sky pressed gently down upon the world. Lightning flashed in distant clouds, silent reminders that the same force nourishing life could one day undo it. But for now, there was only growth, and growth felt like safety. Dr. Rowan closed his notebook and leaned back, listening to the quiet of his study. Outside, the modern world breathed at a careful balance shaped by ancient loss. He thought of the giants who once ruled the air, unaware that the very thing lifting them would one day bring them down. In that first stage of excess, nothing seemed wrong. The world was beautiful, alive, and full. The air had become something more than invisible. It had become a presence, a companion, almost a promise. Life accepted it without question. And so the chapter ends not with fear, but with wonder. A world at the height of its innocence, breathing deeply, growing endlessly, unaware that every gift, when taken too far, quietly begins to change its nature. Please like, share, subscribe my channel. The world did not notice the moment when wonder became confidence. It happened slowly, as all great changes do, hidden inside comfort and repetition. The air remained rich, heavy with oxygen, and life continued to respond as it always had by growing. What began as possibility now felt like destiny. The planet seemed to reward size, strength, and expansion, and so the living world followed that promise without hesitation. Forests thickened until light struggled to reach the ground. Tree trunks rose like pillars, their tops disappearing into green shadow, while layers of fallen plants formed a soft, steaming floor below. Everything here felt permanent. The air carried sound differently, muffled and deep, as if the sky itself were listening. Breathing was effortless, almost intoxicating. Life no longer hurried, it lingered. Insects ruled this world of abundance. Dragonflies with wings wider than any bird the future would know drifted through the forest corridors, their movements slow and deliberate. They did not beat the air so much as rest upon it, supported by its strength. Their bodies shimmered in filtered light, unafraid, unquestioned. Below them, massive arthropods moved through the undergrowth, armored and patient, secure in their size. The ground trembled faintly beneath their passing. There were no small lives here anymore, only those still becoming large. Oxygen flowed freely through bodies never designed to limit it. Cells thrived. Growth came easily, with no shortage to fear and no predators strong enough to challenge them. The giants existed without urgency. Survival felt guaranteed, and when survival feels certain, caution fades quietly away. Far from that ancient forest, Dr. Elias Rowan turned another page in his journal. He had written often about this moment, this gentle turning point where balance begins to slip without resistance. He understood that danger rarely announces itself with violence. More often, it arrives as comfort, as reassurance, as the belief that tomorrow will look just like today. The Carboniferous world believed in tomorrow. Plant life continued to lock carbon deep within the earth, storing it beneath layers of fallen forest. Oxygen remained behind, accumulating in the sky. The atmosphere grew more reactive, more eager. Lightning cracked across the heavens more often now, bright and brief. Fire had always existed, but in this air it lingered longer, burned hotter, moved faster. Still nothing seemed wrong. The fires passed, and the giants remained. Growth became tradition. Each generation inherited a world that encouraged excess. Bodies grew heavier, wings broader, systems more strained by their own success. Yet no voice warned them. Evolution does not speak. It only responds. Dr. Rowan paused his writing and stared at the fossil before him, the imprint of a wing pressed flat into stone. He imagined the creature alive, confident in a sky that carried it effortlessly. He imagined how safe that must have felt, and he felt the weight of what was coming. The air, now nearly 35% oxygen, held more than breath. It held potential energy, waiting. Forests grew so dense that when flames appeared, they had nowhere to go but forward. Fire no longer crept, it leaped. Still, the giants did not flee far. They had lived with fire before. They trusted the world they had always known. But the world had changed. The sky no longer merely supported life. It tested it. As the chapter draws to a close, the age of giants stands at its peak. The forests remain vast, the air remains strong, and life feels untouchable. Yet beneath that confidence, the balance has shifted. The same breath that lifted wings and strengthened bodies has become something heavier, something restless. The planet watches quietly, patient and unjudging, as life grows beyond its own limits, unaware that every rise carries within it the shape of a fall. Please like, share, subscribe my channel. Fire does not roar its arrival. It begins quietly, almost politely, in a corner of the forest where no one notices. A flash of lightning touches dry leaves, a spark ignites a fallen tree, and life continues, unaware. In the Carboniferous world, the air was thick with oxygen, heavy and eager. What once carried strength now carried destruction. At first, the fires were small, almost insignificant. They licked along the edges of the swamps, and the giants barely reacted. Dragonflies lifted lazily above the smoke, their enormous wings catching the light in fragile reflection. Millipedes curled slowly on the forest floor, armored bodies trapping heat they could not escape. The forest smelled of wet green and ash, a strange, mournful perfume. No creature screamed, no animal fled with urgency. They did not yet know that the gift which had lifted them, which had fed their growth, would now undo them. The flames moved faster than life anticipated. They leaped from tree to tree, riding the oxygen-rich air as though it were a river. Fire swept through the forests, consuming generations of green in its quiet, relentless hunger. The very breath that had once nurtured life now fed the flames that would end it. Every giant that had grown to unimaginable size found itself vulnerable. Strength, once a blessing, became a curse. Dr. Elias Rowan imagined this world, tracing the curve of a fossilized wing with trembling fingers. He did not see chaos. He saw silence. Extinction is rarely loud. It arrives in moments too small to notice, in processes too gradual to resist, leaving only memory pressed into stone. The giant dragonflies fell from the sky, millipedes twisted into the ash. Amphibians that once strode boldly along the wet forest floor shrank back, trapped in lungs overwhelmed by heat and oxygen. Life that had felt invincible was gone in quiet chapters, written in smoke and fire. The planet did not act in malice. It simply corrected itself. Oxygen, once a gift, had grown too powerful. Fire, once a visitor, had become a force beyond control. Forests burned, then collapsed. Swamps dried. Carbon returned to the sky. The air slowly thinned as the giants vanished. The world settled into a rhythm more suited to survival than grandeur. Small creatures endured, flexible and patient, bending instead of breaking. They inherited a planet left by beings too large, too confident, too unaware. Elias closed his notebook and leaned back, feeling the weight of the past pressing gently against his chest. There is a tragedy in abundance. There is sorrow in excess. Growth does not always lead to prosperity, and strength does not always protect. Extinction does not scream. It whispers through the leaves, through the smoke, through the stone, leaving lessons only those who listen can understand. The fires died down slowly. The air lightened. Oxygen settled into a safer balance. Silence returned to the swamps. Not an empty silence, but a quiet that spoke of endings and beginnings, of patience and reflection. From the ashes, a different kind of life waited, smaller, cautious, enduring. The giants were gone, but their story lingered, pressed into rock and memory. The world had learned, and in learning, it offered a chance for those who could bend, who could survive, who could carry on. The age of giants ended not with a roar, not with fear, but with breath. The forests exhaled. The sky settled, and life, fragile and patient, continued forward, shaped by fire, by air, and by the quiet lessons of a world that had grown too fast and learned too late. Please like, share, subscribe my channel. After fire there is a calm that feels almost holy. The forests were thinner now, the air lighter, the sky no longer pressing down with the invisible weight it once carried. The giants were gone, and in their absence, life learned to move differently, to breathe differently, to live with a patience born of necessity. The world exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath it had held for millions of years, and the rhythm of survival returned in softer, quieter ways. Small creatures emerged into the spaces left behind. They were not enormous, not spectacular in the way their predecessors had been, but they were adaptable. They could survive where the giants could not, bend where the mighty had broken. They lived not because they were strong, but because they understood balance. The earth, patient and enduring, had taught them well. Growth alone was no longer enough. Longevity required restraint, attentiveness, and humility. Dr. Elias Rowan sat quietly in his study, staring at the fossils and notes spread across his desk. Outside, the modern world stood unaware of the forces that had shaped every breath it took. He thought of the carboniferous forests, of skies heavy with oxygen, of dragons of the air and earth that had lived so boldly, so fully, and yet vanished without a sound. The lesson they carried was not punishment, not misfortune, but memory. The earth remembers its own mistakes and ensures life continues if it can listen. Oxygen, once a force of abundance, had become a force of reckoning. It had lifted the giants, fed them, strengthened them, ultimately revealed that even gifts could be dangerous when taken too far. Life, Elias understood, does not need to be the largest, the fastest, or the most powerful to endure. It only needs to survive, adapt, and respect the balance woven into the world itself. From the ashes of the forests, life quietly re-emerged. Reptiles, then mammals, eventually humans, all inherited a planet shaped by past excess, a sky tempered by fire, and an atmosphere stabilized by lessons written long before memory. The earth had endured, and through its endurance, it offered guidance. Survival is never about grandeur. It is about listening, bending, and carrying on. Elias closed his notebook and rested his hand upon it, feeling the weight of time and the gentle pulse of life that persisted in the present. He whispered softly to himself, "The air you breathe has a history. It has taught patience, balance, and humility. Remember it. Every inhalation now carries a story. Every quiet forest, every gentle breeze, every flicker of flame holds a memory of life's past mistakes and its patient wisdom. The giants may be gone, but the lessons remain, pressed into stone, carried in air, and preserved in the rhythm of life itself. As night falls and your own breathing slows, imagine the ancient sky fading into balance. Feel the air around you, steady and gentle. It sustains you because the world once learned to temper its gifts. Rest now, and know that survival favors patience, not power, and that life endures when it listens to the quiet guidance of the earth." The story of 35% oxygen is not a tale of terror. It is a whisper of wisdom, a meditation on balance, a memory of a world that grew too fast and learned to breathe again. Life continues, the air continues, and tonight, as you breathe, you carry forward the quiet lesson of the world that once lived to large and learned to endure. Please like, share, subscribe my channel.